Hi students, this is Karimunisa Sayyar, Associate Professor in Zoology from Government Science College. So welcome back to session 47A under Zoology, paper 4, in which we are going to study comparative anatomy, cell biology, immunology along with histology. So in this session, we'll have a brief introduction to histology. What is histology? And what are the various types of tissues which occur in the animals? So as you see here, histology is a term which is derived from histos and logos, which means the study of tissues. But the word histology is also present in the German and also in the French. It refers to weave. That means the tissues they weave or make the organs. So histology is basically a branch of anatomy. Of course, in biology, that means we have plant histology and also animal histology, which deals with the minute structural organization of both animals and plants. Of course, as these minute structures are not visible to naked eyes, we have to make use of microscope. So thereby, histology is also known as microscopic anatomy or microanatomy. And Marcello Malpighi, who was a famous Italian anatomist during the 17th century, is considered as the father of histology. Then coming to the tissue. So we have seen histology refers to the study of tissues. So tissues are the groups of cells that have similar structure. Why do they have similar structure? Because all of them, they have same origin and therefore they perform together. They have usually a single function. The tissues are found only in the body of multicellular organisms. Why? Because in the unicellular organisms, the single cell of the body itself will be the body of the animal. So thereby, tissues are not found in the unicellular organisms. Similarly, in multicellular organisms like sponges also, where there is no tissue grade of organization, we don't come across the tissues. So when we refer to tissues, we'll be referring to multicellular organisms only, where we see the tissue grade of organization. So what are the different types of animal tissues we study usually? So in the animals, we come across epithelial tissue, we see connective tissue, we also find muscular tissue and also nervous tissue. And we know very well epithelial tissue is the lining tissue. It will be covering tissue, covering the organs usually both externally and internally. So also we have a binding tissue called the connective tissue. As the name indicates, it connects usually other tissues. So thereby it is also called binding tissue or the connective tissue. Third tissue is the muscular tissue, which will show exceptionally unique feature of contraction and relaxations. So it can transform its shape as per the need of the body. Similarly, we have a coordinating tissue in the animal body that is called the nervous tissue. So this tissue coordinates various other tissues and organs. So thereby it is called the nervous tissue. It is a regulatory tissue. So these are the four important types of tissues we come across in the animal body. So coming to the first and foremost type of tissue, that is the epithelial tissue. It is a protective tissue, which will be always a covering tissue also, because it is protecting the animal body from the entry of external germs or the organisms. Then it will be lining not only the outer covering of the body, it also lines the inner body organs, or the inner lining of the body organs. So thereby, this epithelial tissue will have very regular, that means the cells of the tissue have fixed shape, well defined shape, without any intercellular space. Usually the cells of the epithelium will be arranged on a basement membrane. Then coming to few important features of the epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue was first to evolve during the course of evolution. That means this layer is first formed, a first formed tissue, most ancient tissue. So also during the embryonic development or embryogeny, this tissue is first formed even today. At the same time, we see this tissue, epithelial tissue, getting originated from all the three primary germ layers of the embryo, namely ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Similarly, epithelial tissue can be identified as most of the time the epithelial cells occur in single layer or in multi-layered structure. That is a stratified epithelium. That means you see the arrangement of cells in layers, in rows. Then cells are packed without the intercellular space. So thereby we don't come across any connective tissue or nerve endings between the epithelial cells usually. And epithelial tissue always lie, or the epithelial cells always lie on a non-cellular basement membrane, which restricts the permeability of the cells. Apart from that, this tissue, epithelial tissue, has very high power of regeneration. That means epithelial cells, they multiply enormously. They can regrow when compared to other tissues like nervous tissue. Their power of regeneration is said to be therefore high. Epithelial tissues also show number of cell-to-cell interactions in terms of presence of tight junctions, gap junctions, and zonular adherence and desmosomes or interdigitations. So that means the epithelial cells, they interact with each other. Then only they form the tissue. Tissue means the cells should have a lot of coordination between them. Then only they can function as a group of cells. Similarly, the plasma membrane of epithelial cells usually shows some specialized structures like microvilli, stereocilia, kinocilia, and flagella. These are some of the additional structures we come across in the epithelial tissue. Coming to little bit study of structure of various types of epithelial cells we come across in the animal tissues, which will help us to understand the histology of various organs in the animals. So according to the shape of the animal cells, the epithelial tissue may be of following types. The first and foremost type of epithelium is called squamous epithelium, where we see cells are flat, tile-like. That's why this epithelium is also called pavement epithelium. So this simple squamous epithelium we can identify because of the presence of polygonal cells. You see this shape, they vary. Some of them are showing pentagonal structure, some of them are showing hexagonal structure. So they are said to be polygonal in shape and they have flat cells. Simple squamous epithelium, therefore, it will be seen in the peritoneum of all the animals, peritoneal linings like parietal epithelium, visceral epithelium, and the lining of alveoli of lungs, lining of blood vessels like endothelium, which is called endothelium. So all these structures, they are made up of squamous epithelium. So if there is a single layer of squamous epithelium, it is called simple squamous epithelium. If there are many layers of squamous epithelium, then it is called stratified squamous epithelium, which is found in the epidermis region of the skin. That is the upper layer of the skin. Similarly, stratified epithelium we see in the esophagus of the animals and also in the cornea layer of the eyes. And stratified squamous epithelium is also found in the female urethra, of course in the vaginal region also. Urinary bladder also we come across stratified epithelium. So similarly, we also have cuboidal epithelium where the cells have cube-like shape. Usually, cuboidal epithelium will be found in the secretory glands like thyroid glands, adrenal glands, liver, pancreas, and also secretory cells of the kidney tubules. Though the shape of these cells is cuboidal, cube-like, but the surface, on the outer surface, they may also appear polygonal in shape. That is just to avoid the intercellular spaces. And here also the cuboidal epithelium will be found on a basement membrane. Similarly, we also have elongated epithelial cells forming pillar-like structures or column-like structures forming columnar epithelium. The simple columnar tissue includes therefore tall cells with elongated nucleus, and columnar epithelium is usually found lining the alimentary canal. Again, if there is a single layer of columnar epithelium, it is called simple columnar epithelium. If there are many layers of columnar epithelium, then it is called stratified columnar epithelium. So in the stratified columnar epithelium, you can very clearly see the distal row of elongated columnar cells. It has proximal rows of prismatic cells, cells having prism-like structure, diamond-shaped structure. So thereby, columnar epithelium is also called prismatic epithelium. So this stratified columnar epithelium is found in the pharynx region of the animal, epiglottis of the animal, and apart from that, the columnar epithelium will also get modified to form other types of epithelium called ciliary epithelium and also glandular epithelium. Coming to the modifications in the columnar epithelium, in the ciliated epithelium, the columnar epithelial cells may be having short, vibratile, that means moving, cilia for the purpose of transport of materials like secretory fluids, mucus and other materials which have to pass through some of the body tubes like alimentary canal or the respiratory tube or the genital ducts. Thereby, if the cilia are found attached to the cuboidal epithelium, the cells are called ciliated epithelial cells, and ciliated epithelial cells are found lining the nasal tubes, lining the bronchial tubes where they help in the transport of mucus, and also they may be found in the lining fallopian tube, urinary tubes, etc. Similarly, if the cuboidal epithelial cells have little larger but few hair-like structures called the flagella, then the cells are called flagellated epithelial cells. Flagellated epithelial cells are found in the endoderm of Hydra. Similarly, in the intestine of animals, usually the free end of epithelial cells, columnar epithelial cells, of course, they have plasma membrane transformed into brush-like structures forming microvilli. So these finger-like projections of the plasma membrane called microvilli help the animals in the absorption of the food. So thereby they increase the area of absorption. So thereby they are also called brush border cells, particularly in the intestine of animals. So because of the presence of brush border, you can see the cuboidal columnar epithelial cells, they appear to be cuboidal, or we can say they are low columnar epithelial cells. Again, based on the function also, the columnar epithelial cells are classified or named differently. The brush border cells are helpful in the absorption of food. That's why these cells are also called absorptive cells. Similarly, the squamous epithelium, it is called diffusion epithelium because squamous epithelium usually it will be found lining the tubules. So thereby it helps in the diffusion of the materials across the tubules. For example, the endothelium of the blood vessels. Similarly, usually cuboidal epithelium will be found in the secretory glands of the animals, which are secretory in function. They synthesize and secrete various materials. So thereby cuboidal epithelium is also called secretory epithelium. Similarly, squamous epithelium, ciliated epithelium, and also columnar epithelium, all of them they may be protective in function. So during that time, we try to refer them as protective epithelium, which is protective in function. Similarly, when the epithelial cells have cilia, they are called ciliated epithelium, but these cilia, if they are sensory in function, then it is called stereocilia. Usually, stereocilia are found in the inner ear of animals. Here the cells are with one or two immobile cilia. These are not mobile. They can't wave this cilia at their free end. So such cilia are sensory in function. They are found in the nostrils, in the tongue, in the taste buds of the tongue, in the inner ear or the internal ear of the animals. These sensory cilia, they receive the stimuli from the materials, maybe odor or food materials, or from the sound waves, and just because they are innervated by a small nerve, the message is passed on to the brain. That is how they function as sensory cilia or ciliated epithelium. Again, as I have discussed just now, based on their function, we classify epithelium and also epithelial tissue as covering epithelium, glandular epithelium, and pigmented epithelium. Covering epithelium includes all the layers of epithelium covering both internal and external surfaces of the organs, which is mainly the peritoneal epithelium. Similarly, we have glandular epithelium. It includes specialized epithelial tissues which have acquired either secretory or excretory properties. In general, the cells of the glandular epithelium possess large nucleus, prominent Golgi operators, and the secretory products in the form of granules. Thereby, the glandular epithelium usually stains darker in color. The glandular epithelium may be present either scattered or in group within the other epithelial cells, or it may be variedly organized to form the glands. So when it forms glands, the glands may attain different structure. The epithelial cells, they may arrange themselves to form a tube-like structure that is called tubular epithelial gland, or they may form a pot-like structure, a sac-like structure. Then it is called alveolar epithelial gland or acinar epithelial gland. This tubular gland may be simple like this. This is having a test tube-like structure, or it may be branched, as we come across in the case of lacrimal glands, which will secrete the tears. The lacrimal glands are present in the eyes, whereas simple tubular glands are found in the intestine of animals. Similarly, these tubular epithelial glands may show coiling. So these coiled tubular epithelial glands are found in the sweat glands. So just based on the structure, we are dividing various types of glandular epithelial cells. Similarly, the saccular glands may be simple, saccular, as we see in the case of skin of frog, where they secrete some irritating substance, or in the skin of toads particularly, we have this type of epithelial gland secreting poison substance. Similarly, we will be having some mucus secreting glands in the skin of frog. Similarly, if these glands show branching, they are called simple branched alveolar glands. So this type of simple branched alveolar glands are usually found in the sebaceous glands or the oil secreting glands of the mammals. Apart from that, we have third type of glands called compound alveolar glands, where we can see there is much more complication with regard to the structure of branches of the alveolar glands. They form mammary glands. Particularly the mammary glands, we come across this compound alveolar structure. Whereas salivary glands also show compound but tubulo-alveolar structure. That means it is showing a mixture of both tubular structure and also alveolar structure. Similarly, we also have in the mucus secreting glands of the oral cavity a compound tubular structure. I hope now you have got some idea regarding the structure of glands formed by the epithelium in various examples. Proceeding further, these glandular epithelial cells, they form different types of glands. Some of these glands, they secrete their secretions into ducts or tubes, which will carry their secretions from site of formation to the site of action or the target cells. Such glands are called exocrine glands, and we have a number of examples like liver and pancreas. In these glands, the secretory epithelial cells, they secrete their secretions into the tubes or the ducts. That's why the epithelial cells are called merocrine cells. But in the case of sebaceous glands, oil secreting glands present in the skin of mammals, at the time of secretion, the epithelial cells are also thrown out of the gland along with their content. That's why these cells are referred as holocrine cells. In apocrine cells, usually the apical part or the tip of the cells will be pinched off along with the secretions, and it will be thrown out from the cell, or it will get separated from the cell. Such cells are said to be apocrine cells. So this type of apocrine epithelial cells are found in the mammary glands. But all these type of secretion, merocrine, holocrine, and apocrine, is found usually in the exocrine glands. But apart from that, we also have some glandular epithelial cells which will pour out their secretions directly into the bloodstream. These are called endocrine glands. Apart from these types of epithelial cells, we also have some pigmented epithelial cells, particularly in the eyes of the animals. For example, in the retina, which is exceptionally dark, we have epithelial cells which impart color. Similarly, we also have chromatophores. So at the end, we can summarize that epithelial cells, based on the structure, location, and function, are classified into various types, basically into two types, that is simple and compound, or simple and stratified. Simple epithelium shows squamous epithelium, cuboidal epithelium, columnar epithelium, ciliated epithelium, and pseudostratified epithelium also. Again, pseudostratified epithelium is the epithelium where, though there is a single layer of epithelial cells, they will be arranged in a irregular manner, giving the appearance of a two-layered structure or multi-layered structure. That's why it is called a pseudostratified epithelium. Apart from that, we also have compound or stratified epithelium, which will be again of two types, that is stratified epithelium, which will be again showing different types of cells like squamous cells, cuboidal cells, columnar cells, ciliated cells, and sometimes the squamous epithelial cells may be keratinized. They may be having deposition of dead materials of the cells for the purpose of protection. Some of the cells may not be having this keratinized protein stored in them. They are called non-keratinized cells. Similarly, there is a transitional epithelium. Particularly, we know that in the urinary bladder, whenever the urine is stored, the epithelial cells, they have to expand, or they have to rearrange themselves so that the urinary bladder will expand. So thereby epithelial cells, they may be arranged in one or two rows. But whenever the urine is excreted out, that time the wall of the urinary bladder will collapse, and it may show the arrangement of epithelial cells in a multi-layered manner. Then it turns into stratified epithelium. So thereby this type of epithelium, it is called the transitional epithelium. So I hope with this you have followed about the structure of epithelium. Now proceeding further, the second type of tissue, that is the connective tissue, which is mesodermal in origin, also plays very important role in the formation of the organs and organ systems in the body of the animal. So in the connective tissue, again we have group of cells, but these cells, they have a lot of intercellular spaces. In this intercellular space, which is mainly due to the non-arrangement of compact structure of cells, we see a lot of matrix filling the spaces. So the extracellular spaces are filled with a material called the matrix. So thereby, in the connective tissue, usually we come across cells arranged in intercellular matrix. Apart from that, to strengthen the tissue, we may also come across some fibers. Let us see quickly what are the different types of cells usually we come across. So in the intercellular matrix or in the ground substance, we have mucopolysaccharide, which is mainly consists of hyaluronic acid. In this matrix, a ground substance of connective tissue, we may come across different types of cells. It is not necessary that all the types of cells will be found in all the parts of the body, but in different parts of the body, in the different locations of the connective tissue, we come across all these types of cells. We see fibroblasts, as the name indicates, these are fiber producing cells. Similarly, we may find adipocytes or lipocytes, as the name indicates, these cells, they store the fat. Then we may find antibody producing cells called plasma cells or plasmatocytes. All these cells, they are formed in the bone marrow, plasma cells, but they migrate and they may stay in the connective tissue. Similarly, mast cells. These mast cells we have studied in the immunology classes. They produce histamine, which acts as a vasodilator in the allergic and inflammatory reactions. Mast cells also secrete heparin, which prevents internal coagulation of blood. Mast cells are also known to secrete hormone, that is serotonin, which acts as vasoconstrictor and it checks the bleeding of the blood and it increases blood clotting and blood pressure. So these are the important functions of the mast cells. So mast cells are also found in the connective tissue. Apart from that, macrophages or histiocytes, which are phagocytic in function, they are also present in the connective tissue. Of course, these are all produced in the bone marrow. And apart from that, lymphocytes, which are again two types, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes. So they are particularly the phagocytic lymphocytes, they are again stored in the connective tissue. Similarly, mesenchymal cells from other important cells of the connective tissue. Similarly, coloring cells, the cells which are responsible for the color of the animal body, which will impart the color to the skin, called chromatophores, are also found in the connective tissue because it is the binding tissue. Then we may also come across reticular cells, again which are phagocytic in function. Then we may also find different types of fibers in the connective tissue. That is collagen fiber, which will be white in color because it is made up of collagen protein. And the fibers of collagen protein are very strong, thick, and the fibers will be unbranched. And they are rigid fibers. They are not elastic. And these fibers, they also occur in bundles. So thereby we can easily identify collagen fibers. Similarly, we may also come across yellow color fibers called elastic fibers. These fibers are usually branched and they are made up of elastic protein. So that means they show high ability of contraction and relaxation. Apart from that, we may also come across reticular fibers, which are very fine, delicate fibers, but these fibers are also branched, but they are also inelastic. And these fibers are basically made up of a protein called reticulin. According to the nature of matrix, the connective tissue can be classified into three types: connective tissue proper, skeletal tissue, and vascular tissue. But as per this UG syllabus, we are going to study only the connective tissue proper, because it is the main binding and packing tissue of different structures of the organs. So this connective tissue proper will be further divided into mucus type of tissue, reticular tissue, areolar tissue, fibrous tissue, adipose tissue, and pigmented tissue based on its structure. Coming to the first type of tissue, that is the mucus tissue, which is very common, particularly in the body of jellyfishes. You all must have seen jelly-like tissue. It's very, very soft, transparent tissue. And also, this mucus tissue is found in the eyes of the vertebrates. It consists of, as you see here, few branches of cells and a clear gelatinous matrix which forms the ground substance. So because of these features, we will be able to identify the mucus tissue, and we need to draw the diagrams like this. Similarly, the second type of tissue, it is the reticular tissue. It is relatively dense network of reticular fibers with free cells usually arranged in cords. You must have studied the cords of hepatocytes in the liver. That means there will be rows of cells, usually made up of 2 to 3 rows, and cords of cells may be branched also. And the nature of animal cells in these cords of cells varies from organ to organ. So this type of cells, reticular tissue cells, are commonly found in organs like lymph nodes, bone marrow, and liver. The next tissue is the areolar tissue, which serves as a packing layer beneath the skin, and also it fills up the gaps between the organs. It consists of jelly-like matrix in which different cells and fibers are embedded. Therefore, it also helps in the diffusion of materials across the organs and cells, and also it permits the movement of the cells. So in the matrix of areolar tissue, we clearly see two types of cells: elongated fibroblast cells, which are responsible for the production of these elastic fibers. Apart from that, we also see matrix cells. These matrix cells, they secrete the matrix. Then we may also see the yellow elastic fibers, which are branched and You can see the thin bundles. Apart from that, we may also see thick bundles of white collagen fibers. So due to these structural features, we'll be able to identify the areolar connective tissue. And this is how we have to represent this particular tissue in our drawings. Then the next type of connective tissue proper is the fibrous tissue. This tissue is largely made up of fibers. That's why it is called fibrous connective tissue proper. And this tissue will be usually found covering the muscles and also tendons and ligaments. Tendons, as we have already studied, are responsible for connecting muscles with the bones or muscle to muscle. In tendons, usually the fibers contain collagen. That's why they'll be white in color. And we'll see always the arrangement of these collagen fibers in the parallel fashion, as you see here. Similarly, we also have ligaments made up of similar fibers, collagen fibers arranged in parallel bundles. Apart from the collagen fibers in the ligaments, we also come across elastin fibers. So they permit a little bit of stretching and recoiling. And these ligaments, they help in connecting the different bones to the other bones and also bones with the cartilage. Similarly, we have one more type of connective tissue proper called adipose tissue. In this adipose tissue, the cells which are primarily responsible for carrying reserve fat are located. So usually the adipose tissue will be found below the skin. Thereby it also acts as a insulating layer. It prevents evaporation of the water through the skin, and also it helps in the temperature regulation in the body of homeotherms. This adipose tissue is also found covering around the important organs like kidneys, ovaries, etc. Thereby, it also acts as a cushion to protect these organs from the mechanical injury or shock. So these are the different types of connective tissues we come across. So connective tissue may be loose or dense, or it may be specialized. We are not studying, of course, most of the specialized connective tissues like skeletal tissue, vascular tissue in detail, but we have touched upon areolar tissue, adipose tissue, what is meant by yellow fibrous connective tissue and white fibrous connective tissue, and also pigmented connective tissue along with mucoid or mucous connective tissue. I think this much of information is enough for this semester's studies, particularly the study of histology. Let us quickly sum up the various functions of connective tissue. So as we have seen, connective tissue helps in the attachment of organs and other tissues, mainly the areolar tissue and also the adipose tissue. Apart from that, adipose tissue also helps in the storage of fat. Then similarly, bone and cartilage act as supporting skeleton of the body. It is a main endoskeleton of the body of animals. Blood and lymph, they make the important transport material in the body of the animals. And various types of cells which help the immunity of the body are also derived from the connective tissue, or they are stored in the connective tissue. Similarly, the connective tissue also acts as a shock absorber. It also main important packing tissue around the organs, and connective tissue also helps in the regeneration of the tissues or in the repairing of the tissues. So with that, we have completed this particular session in which we have learned basic types of animal tissues which we need to know before we start with the study of histological details of various mammalian organs. Thank you.